Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today we're zeroing in on a company that's been navigating some truly turbulent yet interesting waters in the global shipping industry. ZIM Integrated Shipping Services. For anyone tracking global logistics and market movements, ZIM has been, well, a fascinating story lately.
That's right. And they're expected to report their Q2 FY 2025 results very soon. So our goal today is really to unpack all the key details you need to know ahead of that announcement.
Exactly. We'll look into what analysts are expecting, how ZIM has performed historically, and the broader trends influencing its business right now. It's all about giving you the clearest picture possible so you can understand the nuances of this upcoming earnings report.
And while we're getting started, we always appreciate it when you subscribe, like, and comment on our episodes. Your engagement really helps us keep bringing you these kinds of analyses.
Absolutely. And if there's a specific company you'd like us to look into in a future episode, please do leave a comment below. We love hearing your suggestions. It helps us tailor our content right to your interests. And, you can also consider buying us a coffee if you appreciate our work. Okay, let's unpack this then. When is ZIM actually expected to report its Q2 results?
Right. So ZIM is expected to report on Wednesday, August 20, 2025. That's before the market opens. This date is projected by Nasdaq and various options trackers, so it's pretty firm.
Got it. August 20th, pre-market.
Yeah.
And what are analysts saying about the numbers? Specifically, what are the consensus expectations for revenue and EPS?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. Revenue estimates aren't explicitly published in the consolidated consensus fees we're looking at, which is a bit unusual.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But for earnings per share, or EPS, there's quite a range. I mean, a really noticeable range. Consensus figures vary from about $1.05, according to Zacks, all the way up to $1.50, which Nasdaq cites based on just 3 analysts. This dispersion itself is quite interesting,
So a bit of a mixed bag there on the EPS, almost a 50-cent spread. Is there any whisper number floating around that suggests a different expectation, something off the record?
Not really. As of today, no credible whisper EPS numbers have been published by the major trackers we follow. Neither Zacks nor the Nasdaq pages show any whisper numbers right now, so we're stuck with that wide official range.
Okay. Let's connect this to the company's own previous guidance then. What did ZIM tell us when they reported their Q1 FY 2025 results back in May?
Right, so in their Q1 report, that was May 19th, 2025, ZIM reported revenue of $2.01 billion. Adjusted EBITDA came in strong at $779 million, and EBIT was $464 million.
Pretty solid numbers.
Very solid. And their diluted EPS for Q1 was actually $2.45.
$2.45. Okay, that's quite high compared to the Q2 estimates we just mentioned.
Exactly. And how did management's commentary in Q1 set the stage for Q2? What was the vibe?
Well, management commentary established a pretty strong profitability baseline extending into mid-2025. They also reported significant volume growth, which is key. It was up 12% year over year.
12%.
Reaching 944,000 TEUs. So this robust Q1 performance really frames the expectations heading into Q2. It set a high bar.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. How has ZIM historically performed against expectations, particularly in recent quarters? Do they tend to beat these numbers?
Well, Zacks reports that last quarter, that EPS of $2.45 actually beat the consensus estimate, which was $1.89.
Ah, okay.
So that was a positive surprise of nearly 30%, almost 30%.
Wow, that's significant.
It is. Now, detailed beat misinformation for earlier quarters isn't explicitly shown in the sources we reviewed, but that 29.63% positive surprise for Q1 is definitely noteworthy.
Okay. What about the stock's reaction after previous earnings reports? Do we have any insights there? Does it pop or drop?
Well, Options Analytics sites track something called implied straddle and price effect around each earnings report. These basically give you historical day-after reactions.
Right, the expected move versus the actual.
Exactly. But the specific last 4 moves aren't enumerated in the pages we looked at, so we don't have that precise historical pattern for ZIM right now.
Okay. Let's look at the key metric trends then. How does Q1 FY 2025 compare to previous periods in terms of, say, profitability and volume? You mentioned the strong numbers, but how strong compared to before?
Q1 FY 2025 really showed accelerating profitability. I mean, revenue was up 28% year over year to that $2.01 billion figure.
28% year over year. Okay.
Adjusted EBITDA surged 82% year over year to $779 million.
82.
Yeah, huge jump. And EBIT jumped to $464 million from just $167 million a year ago. Volumes were also up. that 12% year-over-year to 944,000 TEUs.
So this all indicates pretty strong rate and mixed tailwinds as ZIM headed into the Q2 comparison period, right?
Absolutely. Suggests momentum was building.
Okay, so beyond the numbers themselves, what significant news or external factors have been influencing ZIM during this recent quarter? What's the context?
Well, investor attention has certainly increased going into this Q2 report. You see trading update articles noting this. That Q1 print back in May really set a high bar because of that robust profitability and TEU growth.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that was happening, importantly, within the Red Sea rerouting environment.
Right. That's been a huge factor for shipping.
Definitely. This situation is significantly shaping expectations for Q2, which, on top of that, is also usually seasonally stronger for volumes anyway.
So what does this all mean for the broader shipping sector and maybe macroeconomic trends? Is ZIM just riding a wave here?
Well, shipping equities, those stocks, have seen improving sentiment into mid-2025. One market piece we saw noted ZIM trading up about 15% amid this upbeat market sentiment just ahead of Q2.
15% jump, okay.
Yeah, it reflects firmer freight rate expectations and those ongoing supply chain reroutes, which have basically kept capacity tighter and supported rates since earlier in 2024.
Right. And you mentioned earlier that dispersion in analyst expectations. What's fascinating about the recent analyst commentary, or maybe the lack of consensus?
Yeah, the consensus dispersion is quite stark. Like we said, Nasdaq, citing Zacks, shows a $1.50 EPS consensus, while Zacks' own consensus table lists $1.05 for Q2.
Big difference.
It just highlights how mixed analyst expectations really are heading into this announcement. There's no clear agreement on what's going to happen.
Okay, moving to the technical side now. What has ZIM's pre-earnings price action been telling us? You mentioned that 15% jump.
Yeah, exactly. A news tracker on August 11th, 2025, reported ZIM was up 15.19% on that single day.
Wow, in one day.
In one day. This signals a pretty significant run-up and indicates, elevated expectations from the market heading into this report. People are betting on good news.
And what about options data, like the call and put options ratio or implied volatility? Does that give us any more clues?
Well, as we touched on, the reference to options analytics portal does indicate it provides earnings straddle and price effect history.
Yeah.
But the specific call-put ratio data isn't shown in the excerpts we have available. Similarly, while the site describes that implied straddle metric for expected moves around earnings,
Right.
the current implied percentage move for this specific event isn't provided in our sources. So the market's expectation for the size of the move is a bit of a black box for us right now.
Okay. Let's get into the what-if scenarios then. What would a bullish case for ZIM's Q2 earnings look like? What are the green flags?
A bullish outcome would likely involve EPS materially above that higher end of the range, so let's say comfortably over $1.50.
Okay, beating the top estimate.
Yeah, combined with Q2 revenue growth that's sustained sequentially from Q1's $2.01 billion baseline. You'd want to see continued strong spot and contract rate realization, with adjusted EBITDA margins maintained or even maybe expanding, staying near that Q1 run rate relative to revenue, basically showing the strength is continuing or improving.
And for the outlook, what would they need to say about the second half?
Positive forward commentary on second half rates, ship utilization, and cost control would be key. And ideally, TEU volumes holding that double-digit year-over-year growth into the peak shipping season, that would be very bullish.
Okay, what about the flip side? What constitutes a bearish case for ZIM? What are the red flags we should watch for?
A bearish scenario would probably be EPS at or below the lower end of that consensus, so around $1.05 or less. This could happen due to rates normalizing faster than expected, maybe higher bunker fuel costs or rerouting costs eating into profits, or weaker utilization of their fleet.
And a soft Q3 outlook, I imagine.
Absolutely. A soft Q3 outlook would definitely fit the bearish case, maybe with indications of margin compression coming from easing freight rates, or maybe increased competition stepping in.
Any signs of volume deceleration, then? That would be worrying compared to Q1.
Yes, any signs of volume deceleration compared to Q1's 12% year-over-year growth would be a concern. Or a step down in adjusted EBITDA from that Q1 level of $779 million without some clear offsetting positive guidance would certainly lean bearish.
Okay, so if you're watching this, if our listeners are watching when the report comes out, what's the single most important metric to keep an eye on? The one number to focus on?
I think the key metric to watch will be adjusted EBITDA and, crucially, its margin trajectory.
Adjusted EBITDA.
Yeah. You want to compare it closely against Q1's $779 million and also the EBIT of $464 million. These figures capture the net effect of everything: rates, fuel, network disruptions beyond just the headline EPS number. They give you a better sense of core profitability.
Right, the underlying operational health. So let's try to summarize. When you look at everything we've discussed, what's the overall leaning for ZIM going into this report? Bullish, bearish, neutral?
The overall leaning appears to be kind of neutral to cautiously bullish.
Okay.
You have that strong Q1 run rate and the recent pre-earnings momentum in the stock, which are definitely positive points.
Right.
But then you have that really wide dispersion in the EPS consensus from $1 up to $1.50. That suggests a higher outcome variance, more uncertainty.
So on a confidence scale of 1 to 10, maybe, how would you rate the probability of a clear, predictable outcome here?
That's tough. I'd probably put it around a 5.
A 5 out of 10. So pretty uncertain.
Yeah, exactly. You have the mixed consensus, you have that elevated run-up in the stock price, already pricing in good news, and the whole sector's sensitivity to macro rates. It just suggests a balanced probability for either a beat or some kind of normalization. While Q1 strength supports the upside, market expectations have definitely risen quite a bit.
Okay. So for our listeners who might be considering a trading strategy around this event, what are some thoughts? Maybe for both risk-averse and perhaps more risk-tolerant folks.
Sure. For the risk-averse investor, it might be wise to, consider avoiding holding common shares through the report itself, just to avoid that potential volatility.
Sit it out, maybe?
Yeah, or maybe use a limited risk structure like a defined risk call spread after any pullback, but only if the management guidance actually confirms the strength you're looking for.
And for those more comfortable with risk, maybe looking to capitalize on the potential move.
Well, given the documented availability of those implied straddle analytics we mentioned, and the fact that ZIM has historically seen large moves around earnings, a short duration option strategy like a long straddle or strangle might fit. These profit from a big move in either direction. That could work, particularly if the implied move priced by the options market seems modest compared to how much you think it could move.
Or a directional bet.
Or, alternatively, a directional call spread could be considered if you really lean towards a strong beat, say above $1.50 EPS, coupled with solid second-half commentary.
What about strategies for after the earnings report? Once the numbers are out and the dust settles?
Post-earnings, if the results do beat expectations and the guidance is strong, you might see momentum follow-through trades targeting continuation of the move.
Okay.
But you have to be mindful that prior large day moves like that 15% jump can sometimes partially mean revert or pull back a bit. So don't chase too hard immediately.
And if it's a miss?
If there's a miss or soft guidance, you might look for signs of capitulation, heavy selling pressure, maybe finding a support level before considering scaling into positions, potentially playing for a bounce.
So reacting to the actual news and the market's interpretation.
Precisely. Understanding the full picture from analyst expectations and historical performance to sector trends and these potential scenarios is really crucial when looking at an upcoming earnings report like ZIM's. It's not just about the headline number, but all the context around it.
Exactly. And what really stands out to me here is that interplay between the company-specific performance and the broader industry dynamics, especially in a sector as cyclical and, frankly, volatile as shipping. The key question for you, the listener, to consider is how much of ZIM's recent strong performance is purely company-driven, their own execution,
right,
and how much is just a reflection of these temporary, although quite powerful, tailwinds in the global shipping market, like the Red Sea situation.
That's a really fascinating question to ponder, especially for the longer term. Thank you for joining us for this look at ZIM Integrated Shipping Services.
Yeah, my pleasure. And we appreciate you tuning in. Until next time, keep learning and stay well informed.